welcome back to the Grow with Cara show. Today we continue our interview series with successful attorney marketers. We're taking a close look at what's working, what's not working, the specific steps these attorneys took to get to where they are. And these are simple steps that you too can follow to get on a similar path to growth. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. Today, our special guest is attorney Mauro Fiore Jr. Mauro is the founding attorney of Fiore Legal, a personal injury firm in California. The firm has collected more than $250 million in verdicts and settlements for injured clients. And Mauro himself has tried over 50 jury trials. We're super excited to have him here today. Welcome, Mauro. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So Mauro, to begin, tell us just a little bit about your story. Kind of when and why did you start Fiore Legal?
Well, I mean, I've been a lawyer for a long time, longer than I like to admit anymore. I got out of law school really young. I got out of law school when I just turned 24 when I passed the bar, and I went to work at a few different firms, and the only jobs I could find were at personal injury and workers' comp firms. I worked at a couple of personal injury work comp firms for a few years, and this was back in 97, 98, 99. So a long time ago, back in the 90s, it was a different world. And how people did things and the practice of law is so much different now than it was then. It's kind of amazing. So I worked for a few firms back in the late 90s, and then around 2000 or so, I realized that I wasn't really getting anywhere, and I worked for some real characters. I mean, they were two nutty lawyers. Both of them got disbarred. The only two lawyers I worked for, both of them got disbarred. They were crazy guys.
Wow.
So I figured, man, these guys are really something off the deep end. I better get the hell out of here. And so I went to start my own office with no money, no connections, nothing other than just, being really young and naive. And I think that helps when you don't really have much expectation. You just kind of just go.
Yeah, that's a little scary. So how did you get things off the ground? How did you really start to attract clients and start to help people?
Yeah, so I went on my own. There was a paralegal at the last firm I worked for who also saw the writing on the wall that the place was collapsing. And he said, "Hey, you're going to go, I'll go with you, And I have like 10 clients or something, which to me was like, wow, you got 10 clients? It's like, yeah, I got like 10 cases. I'll go with you. Let's, if you're going to go, let me know. I'll get my files together and we'll get the hell out of here." And I was like, okay, man. So I did that. So I went and opened like a 1-room office, like in an executive suite. They used to call them Fijian suites, after an old attorney named Paul Fijian, who actually invented that concept in Beverly Hills. He opened the first thing they used to call them Fijian suites. Everywhere. I mean, I come from an older era of lawyers, so he went by the nickname was the Fig, and he was like a real weird guy. He was a magician. Like he was a magician at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, like a famous magic place. Yeah. And he would drive around like Hollywood and Beverly Hills in like this purple convertible and like show up at bars and do magic tricks. He was a real crazy guy, the Fig. But he invented that executive suite concept for lawyers.
Interesting.
So I rented a Fijian suite. It was 10 by 10. We had one desk, one phone. Me and the paralegal shared one phone because we didn't have money for two phone lines. And we started off with those 10 files. And then he had connections. He knew some lawyers and so that's how, like the old fashioned way. I went and met lawyers that had been in practice a long time, that had cases that they didn't want, cases they were dropping, cases that weren't worth their time and effort. All PI stuff, or just guys that, they would get cases that weren't bad, but they were below like their threshold, like small cases, small rear enders, stuff like that. So I met a lot of people and I started networking the old fashioned way, going to meetings. I joined CALA, which was a big thing for me at that time. And so I got it off the ground just doing the old fashioned networking stuff back in the old days when, you had to do that all in person. You had to go meet people, talk to people, shake hands, kiss babies, as they say, do it all that way.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got it to where I was just, was able to survive until, I got a few good cases, some good settlements, and then finally I was able to invest a little in the firm. And at that time, I bought some phone book ads, which at the time was the thing. You wanted
Right.
a phone book,
Right. And so
Cheers.
yeah. So those phone book ads, I mean, were those, I assume those were effective, back in the day when you were starting to invest in those. So how did that kind of snowball? Tell us a little bit about kind of what were your biggest challenges or sort of growth pains when you first started to see that growth and business really started to pick up?
Yeah, it's the thing that was hard was, and again, I'm talking about the old practice of law, and it was so different. I mean, I practiced law for 4 years, maybe 3 years before I ever had internet access. I mean, there was not, in the late 90s and early 2000s, people didn't have internet. And if you did get it, it was super expensive. It was dial-up, which you plugged it into your phone line, and it would take like a minute to download a page. And if there was a photograph, it would take 5 minutes per page. And they charged you by the minute. It was called Prodigy, and there was AOL back in those days, and you had to pay by the minute, and it was a different world. So, so I'm talking about the old like Abraham Lincoln practice of law, which I did when I started. Was we kept like our statute book like in a book, and you wrote it down. Wasn't computerized. Nothing was streamlined. Everything was paper. Files were boxes and boxes, and there was no. I mean, some of the lawyers that I know that don't practice anymore, if they came back to see how it is now, they'd go into shock to see how I could have a file that's as big as this whole room on my phone.
Right.
So it was a little bit harder to manage everything in those, and like the dinosaur days of law, because everything wasn't so computerized. The only thing anybody had on the computer was like form programs,
Mm-hmm.
and you would get a disc in the mail every month with the new forms.
Mm-hmm.
You could fill out the forms online and print them on the computer and print them. That was the thing, everyone. That was about as high tech as it got.
That was cutting edge. Yeah.
That was cutting edge. So it was hard to manage everything the old way.
Yeah.
Without email. Of course, nobody used email either. So if you wanted to do anything, you had to make phone calls, write letters, and fax them to people. So you had to write letters, fax them, or just send them in regular mail. So like if you wanted to set up a deposition with a defense attorney, you could send letters back and forth for weeks.
Yeah.
It was just a different kind of practice.
Yeah.
So all that was very difficult to deal with without the technology we have now.
Sure.
It was very time consuming.
Yeah. So Mauro, give us an idea of the size of the firm now, team size. How many attorneys do you have? How many support staff do you have?
Yeah, now I think I'm at a pretty good size where I don't want to get any bigger than I am. And I think right now we've had this particular firm size for probably 5 years now, and we have 5 lawyers, about 15 paralegals.
Yeah.
We have, then the paralegals have assistants, law clerk assistants, and we have a couple people work in our intake department, a couple people work in reception. And then we also have an office in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, yeah.
So we have attorney and staff up there, 1 attorney and 2 staff members in Seattle that handles the Pacific Northwest cases that we do. So yeah, I mean, so probably between attorneys and support staff, maybe we're probably around 30 people.
Okay.
So right now, which I think is about as big as I'd like to get it. I don't think it needs to be I don't need to expand anymore. If anything, I need less cases
right.
that are better.
Sure, sure, sure. What about revenue growth over kind of throughout history, I guess, because you said around the last 5 years, it's been about steady, but what has revenue growth been like for you? Just give us an idea.
My accountant always tells me, because I meet with my accountant 2, 3, 4 times a year. I just met with him Friday. I call him the Grim Reaper when he comes in here, because there's never any good news. He always says, I want to congratulate you. You had such a good quarter, but this is how much you owe Uncle Sam, and I want to throw him out the window. But he always has told me for the last 10, 12, 15 years, my accountant has always told me that I'm one of the few that he deals with only professionals, usually lawyers, doctors, professional service people. He says I'm one of the few clients that every year has positive revenue growth every year.
Nice.
So every year it grows, and he says it's pretty amazing how consistently your revenue grows every year, and that's kind of like I'm not surprised because I work hard, but it's not something I focus on. I've never really focused, and I was talking to I went to Europe this year. I took a long vacation with Bob Simon from Simon Market. And he's like kind of the antithesis of me. He's like, he came into the practice of law at the time when technology was revolutionizing the practice. And he's done a lot of things that are pretty amazing. He's a very smart guy. And he has crazy vision. So I was in Europe with him, my family and his family in Europe for 5 weeks. And we would just, drink and play Uno and get drunk every night. Just very relaxing vacation. We have kids that are the same age, small kids and stuff. So it wasn't like we were out at clubs or anything.
Right.
So, and I told him, I said, the one thing I do regret, as long as I've been doing this, is that it took me a long time to really give a shit about the business end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where all I did for, let's say, 10, 12, 15 years was just come to work and try to be the best lawyer I could be.
Yep.
And that's all I cared about. I didn't care about revenue. I didn't care about anything. All I cared about was being a good lawyer, which on the one hand, I would say I'm pretty competent, knock on wood, not to toot my own horn, but I'm a pretty good lawyer, and I know this shit real well,
Yeah.
Well,
what changed, Mauro? What was the shift? Then when did you start to pay more attention to the business side and the growth and the entrepreneurial?
Yeah, so then, probably about 10 years ago, I've had my office since 2000. It's 22 now, right? So maybe I spent about 10, 12 to 13 years not really giving a shit. And then the last 7 or 8 years or so, I decided, what, I think I need to be more of because then I saw how all the technology was changing the practice, how people were handling more and more cases with less staff, getting better results, maximizing recovery for clients through really good marketing and organization and business development and things like that. Like, luckily, I'm friends with a lot of lawyers, and I got to see how a lot of them were doing it, including Bob and a bunch of other guys, younger guys, and then I know the old guard guys too. Because I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I'm my age people, the guys who are my age, were kind of stuck in the middle between. Like, I remember practicing law with no internet, and now I can run my whole office off of my phone in
Right.
Europe for a month.
Right.
So
That's pretty incredible.
So I'm kind of stuck in the middle. So I got to see how people were doing it, and I started paying more attention to business development, law practice management, and the best, utilizing your time more wisely. And so that, like I told Bob when we were on vacation, that's probably my biggest regret, that I didn't do that sooner.
Right.
Because I probably would have done things. Things might be a little different. Not that I can't complain at all.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. But,
well, let's get down to the nitty gritty a little bit. We talked before this a bit about what is really contributing to, or what has contributed to, your growth. How are most of your clients finding you? I know you have a really strong referral network, but you're not heavily investing in traditional marketing and advertising. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think now, I always say now, if I just came out of law school now, it would be like, I don't know, it would be almost like impossible to really get to be a new lawyer to come in and say, I'm going to be a PI lawyer in Southern California, the most competitive personal injury market in the whole world, right? It would be so crazy to do because you're competing with guys like Sweet James Berger and Jacoby and Myers and Wilshire Law Firm, some of the, bigger, gigantic advertising monsters that can outspend you 500 times, right? So that's something that I realized right from the beginning. I couldn't play that game, I can't play that game. I needed to just continue doing what worked for me, and even now more so. The old way I did things still works, but now instead of this young guy begging for cast off scrap cases, right? Now I'm an older established attorney that's pretty well known in certain areas, that has tried tons of cases. The defense lawyers know me. They know I don't mess around. So my reputation that I've developed has allowed me to still be competitive and still flourish and still grow in this market without spending almost no money on advertising, the stuff that people do now. But that's because I put in the time and effort being a good lawyer, trying so many cases, and being, mediating cases, arbitrating cases, trying cases, getting to know defense attorneys, getting insurance companies letting you know who you are. Like Gary Dordick, my mentor from the beginning, always told me, he says, to settle cases, you have to not settle cases. So you can't just be begging to dump and settle every case, but then they figure this guy's never going to trial. This guy's never going to the mat. You have to go to trial. You have to arbitrate cases. You have to try cases. You have to walk away from the cheap, easy money. I don't care. I have been practicing law, like I said, a long time, over 20 some years, almost 25 years. I've been broke, as you can believe. I mean, I've been broke down to my last dollar when I was a young lawyer, and I never, even in those days, I would never sell out my client for a cheap settlement. I don't care what. If I had to borrow money, if I had to bring in another lawyer to help me, whatever it is, I've never sold my client out for the cheap, easy settlement. And I'll never do that. Now, especially now, to where I'm more established.
Yeah.
Now, they're gonna pay real money, or they're gonna go to trial.
Right. Yeah, that's admirable. And your reputation obviously has allowed you to really grow this deep, rich referral network. So Mauro, you're a frequent guest speaker at events, webinars. You're often sharing your knowledge. Why do you spend your time educating others?
Because I always see it as, I owe it to the profession. The legal profession has been so good to me and my family. And again, I didn't come from any educated, privileged background. I was the first person in my family to be a lawyer or to have any type of professional. My dad, what I got from my dad is my dad was a real hustler. My dad came to this country from Italy, didn't speak English, 6th grade education, but my dad knew how to make money. That was my dad. Oh, my dad's only skill is he knew how to make money. Yeah. And my dad was very personable, funniest guy ever, and but also very good businessman. And my dad wasn't educated, but he could do crazy math and stuff in his head like a computer. Like he was real smart, cool. But he wasn't an educated guy. So I got my hustle from the old man. Yeah. So I the hustle is what I think you either have it or you don't. So if you have the hustle, you'll probably be able to make it in anything you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I assume that these, guest speaking spots, they're, of course you're giving back to the profession, as you say, it's increasing your exposure. It seems like it would be worthwhile to just, to help the firm grow and, further kind of deepen those
It
referrals.
definitely helps your reputation as someone that people like. Every time I speak, and I speak a lot, and I write a lot of articles. I've written articles for a lot of different legal magazines, websites. I wrote a chapter in a book, a trial guides book that was written by Nick Rowley called Running with the Bulls, which I think is one of the best-selling books. I wrote a chapter in that book. Nick asked me to write a chapter in that book about premises liability, because that's kind of what I'm known for, as premises liability. That's what I pretty much in my firm, what we do is dangerous condition cases, private property, public property, slip and fall, trip and fall, dangerous conditions. That's what we're known for. So I do a lot of speaking on that subject because it's outside the norm of what most people do. You can have lawyers that are great lawyers, great personal injury lawyers who spent years in practice, and all they've done is auto stuff, right? Which, like I always say, I wish I wasn't so great at premises cases. The only reason I'm so good at them is that most people don't want them because they're hard, they're difficult, and they want to. I like people who got run over in the crosswalk by a UPS truck as good as the next guy. You know what I mean? But that's never been my reality. My desk is not. That's not Brian Panish's office, where I have those files stacked up to the ceiling. I've been grinding away on tough cases, so I know this stuff. So you have lawyers that are super experienced that don't know what to do with a premises case. Yeah. And so I have guys, so people that hear me speak or read my articles and stuff are a mix of like new lawyers and that call me up and ask me ridiculous questions. But I always give out my cell phone number. It's 310-213-7257. Call me. If I answer, I answer, If I don't, leave me a message. But you call me anytime and ask me a question about a case, I don't care. I mean, people answered my phone when I was a young lawyer or I needed help. People to this day, I could call my guys and they'll help. I could call Gary Dornick, Bob Simon, Dan Kramer, Tom Fair, Gene Sullivan, Ben Wynn. These are my boys, you know what I mean? Connell Doyle. I could call these guys and they're all marquee lawyers. Great lawyers. I'm friends with Arash Hamanpour, one of the best. I could ask Arash anytime about anything and answer the phone for me. So I have that privilege that I can do that. So if someone wants to look at me and say, Mauro knows what he's talking about, or maybe Mauro can help me or talk me off the ledge or help me with a strategy or something, why wouldn't I give back when I've been so lucky to have such a network that I have? So I don't care. I can speak 1,000 times and not get one case referred to me. I don't really care, because I have enough business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If someone wants to refer me a good case, someone wants me to help them on a good case, great. If they just want me to help them out as best I can and they want to run with the football themselves, I'll give you anything you want. You want discovery, you want pleadings, it's fine. I don't. So I think people, it's like anything, people they figure out right away if you're just full of shit, you want them to give you their cases.
Yeah, right.
Or whether you're actually sincere and you'll help them out. And if at the end of the day, 5 years later, they send you a good case or something, great, but I don't, it's not part of what I do because I expect anything in return.
Yeah. I think that's exactly why it works for you. So I'm interested in you kind of making the leap to Seattle. Why did you decide to open that office? And was it, was there a specific need? Tell us about that experience.
Well, I opened that office like during the pandemic. I had a lot of time to think about stuff, look at stuff, analyze things, and the personal injury market here in California in general is amazingly competitive and difficult and expensive to get cases. I mean, there's ways to get cases now where you could just pay thousands of dollars per case and you can have these companies that will get you, you tell them, I want 50 cases next month signed up on my retainer, delivered to my inbox and my email, and they'll give them to you. Good cases. But that's going to cost you $500,000.
Right.
The cost per case acquisition is in the thousands and thousands of dollars. And I know there's a lot of people that do that, and good, more power to them. It's awesome. that that's how you want to get business. That's never been my thing. In Seattle, first of all, it's not, it's a big city. Seattle, Tacoma is huge. Thousands, millions of people. And it's very similar to Los Angeles, where it's a commuter type place. Nobody really lives in Seattle. It's like downtown LA. Nobody lives down there really. Everybody lives in the outskirts. And between Seattle and Tacoma, and say like Kirkland, we're talking about a huge area, like from like Orange County to like Woodland Hills, a huge area, right? Big area. And there's millions of people driving on the freeways. So lots of auto cases, lots of trucking cases, because they have a big port there in Seattle. So it's a good market, and it's 10% as competitive as California.
Yeah. Do you have a network up there, or how did you?
I have a firm up there that I hooked up with when I opened up the office. That is a firm that does not handle personal injury cases, but they advertise heavily for other types of cases, and they have a lot of referral business. So I have a deal with a local firm up there that's very well known and very heavily marketing other areas of the law, and they're referring me a lot of business. So I have a joint venture deal with them.
Nice.
We joint venture on advertising. And so I have a firm that sends me a lot of business up there. And then just from my own contacts down here, Washington State's not that far. And there's a lot of people with close contacts to Washington that are living in California. And just through my peanut budget of advertising, on Facebook and Instagram, I'm talking about like a couple $1,000s a month that we do this social media stuff. Which would be like 2 minutes at Wilshire Law Firm, my whole budget for the whole month.
Yeah.
People see that we have a Seattle office, and I just got a text message right now from a guy saying that he's has a friend who has a case in Seattle and wanted to refer it to me. So I get it from, and this is a local LA guy. So I get some cases through that, but it's like anything. Once you run through, let's say, 200 or 300 clients, so maybe that 200 or 300 clients will take you, let's say you sign up 20 cases, 15 cases a month, something. After a couple of years, you'll have 200 or 300 clients that have used my office in Seattle. Once you have 200 or 300 people, your network starts to develop. It's like multi-level marketing. That starts to network, starts to develop to where it goes from 200 or 300 clients to where they have uncles and aunts and friends at work, and after a while it just snowballs to where you just start getting calls from their clients.
Sure.
If and this is the big if, you took care of each one of those clients and made sure that you did everything you could to satisfy them.
Right.
These big advertising firms, and I'm not singling anybody out, because all the names I mentioned, the big advertising firms, are firms that actually send me cases. So I'm not saying these people do this or that, but a lot of the big advertising firms, they have so much business that they don't really, a lot of them might have clients that aren't happy about how their cases went. And since they're so busy and so big, they can't really focus on making one little client on a $15,000 rear end accident case happy to where they're going to send you all their friends and neighbors for life.
Right.
So if you are careful about making sure your clients are happy and you have the time and to do that, I think at the end of the day, it pays back 10 times over.
Absolutely. Is the firm doing anything to stay in touch with those past clients on an ongoing basis?
We used to, we still do actually. I think we still do. We used to send out calendars every year to all of our old clients, thousands of calendars every year, every December. That was like our first thing that we used to do back in the day. Like that was my mom, God rest her soul. My mom used to work for me. And my mom was like, I don't know, she kind of just cruised around the office. They figured if mom was here, they're working,
That's great.
My mom was retired and she would just cruise around. that was her big idea. Let's send calendars. So what are you gonna say no to your mom? So my mom would always work on this all year long, working on the mailing list to send the calendars out. And I got tons of business off the calendars sent clients. But now we do, now we just have email lists, stuff like that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
we send emails, we send like an email newsletter type thing. And I still think we send the calendar out snail mail because I know every year
That's smart.
around like February, takes a while,
Yeah.
but around February every year I see because we send out thousands and thousands of calendars.
Yeah.
So around February, I start seeing like bundles of them coming back, returned to sender.
Oh, right.
Stacks like every day. Because after like a month, they figure just send it back, right? It does not delivered, refused, they're
Right.
gone, whatever. So around February, I start seeing bundles of calendars coming back in the mail that didn't make it. So that's how I always remember. I guess we sent the calendars, but so I guess we still send those. But yeah, now it's all internet. It's all like we have we use this company called Whippy. That's a text message communication portal for clients. Because one thing I can tell you is that nobody wants to talk on the phone under any circumstances. I don't want to talk to anybody either, and I like to talk.
Yeah.
If I could do everything through text message, I would. And I mean everything. So clients are the same way. They don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
They want text message. Everyone wants to SMS. They don't want to email either. They want SMS.
Right.
We want text. So we have a text message platform called Whippy.
Nice. And are you using that for client communication and sort of staying in touch? Just everything. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're right. Not only is that the preferred form of communication, but it's, people are so much more likely to check their text messages, right, than their emails, everyone's inbox. Oh, nice. You're having a great afternoon. I appreciate that.
Weller Special Reserve. Anyone who's interested.
Cheers to that. So Maura,
it loosens me up on these things.
Yeah, I can tell you're really vibing now. So let's talk a little bit about social media just briefly. So you're at Fiore Legal on Instagram. You put out some great content organically, but you're also putting a little bit of money into some ads. So is social media a sizable lead driver for the firm? Tell us just about your overall social media approach.
Yeah, well, again, we didn't really get into it until the pandemic, and then you're sitting at home figuring out what to do, and I started becoming more interested in it because I myself was sitting around watching Instagram because at some point you run out of shit to watch on Netflix, and the pandemic was rough the first 18 months, and I was just sitting at home.
Yeah. So
I decided that we would make a launch towards because we had Instagram for a couple of years, but we didn't do shit with it. We would do one generic post every week or something, just ridiculous and horrible posts.
Okay.
So I said, give me the password to it. I'm going to log into it. I'm going to do some content that's hybrid business personal. And then we hired a slick company to do real professional stuff, posts and videos, and I think they do 3 posts a week, and they put stuff on our stories a couple times a week. Real professional stuff that looks good and is meant to target both clients and lawyers, because I think Instagram, mostly lawyers are watching other lawyers. So
right.
And then I'm not really one to put myself, if you watched my Instagram stories and stuff, you see a lot of what's going on, what I do with mostly my kids and my family. You won't see me very often. I'm not one of these guys that likes to put themselves out there all the time. And I don't think I have a face meant for radio, not television. No one wants to see this face. So I rarely put myself out there, but my kids are very cute. And my wife's very beautiful. So good. So
I mean, you have a pretty loyal following on Instagram, but tell us a little bit about the ads. What type of ads are you running? And
the ones that we do I run them with a couple different companies that do non-branded advertising, if you know what that is. I never would have known what that shit was before the pandemic, but it's just basically if you're scrolling through your Instagram or your Facebook or TikTok, or you scroll through and there's ads that pop up. So the non-branded advertising is where it just says, "Hey, were you in an accident? Did you get bitten by a dog? Click here for more information." That kind of stuff, which I think they must have to send millions of them out to get enough people to click on them. But so I like getting involved. I'm involved in some of those non-branded campaigns where people click on it, and then depending on where they're clicking on it from, then it sends you to like, okay, someone that can basically, they say, okay, well, you were in an accident in Seattle or you were in an accident in Los Angeles. Yes. You answer like 5 questions. Would you like a lawyer to contact you? Yes. And then that lead gets sent to us. And then we contact the lead and say, hey, you saw us on Instagram or TikTok. We're getting back to you about this accident you were in 4 days ago. So that's the stuff that we do on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the non-branded lead generating stuff.
Is the non-branded, are those ads generating quality prospects for you?
Yeah, when you work through them, because I would say that probably the retention is probably 25%, maybe 20% of the leads that come through that, which is not bad.
No, that's good. That's really good. And you're spending what, a couple $1,000 a month, or?
Yeah, $2,000 a month on those non-branded ads.
Okay. Well, man, that's pretty good.
Just, and some of them are, where you're gonna slip and fall, or whatever it is that catch people's attention. I don't know how they decide to send this stuff out, but or who they target or how they do it is beyond my comprehension on that.
Sure. Yeah.
But that stuff has worked enough, but it's nice to just have that kind of like as another, hook in line in the water,
right,
on everything else that we do. We used to do more traditional like fine law and all that, but that stuff is very expensive. It doesn't really work.
Yep.
So we don't do fine law anymore. Never worked for us. Maybe it works for some people.
Yeah.
We used to do a company called Nolo Press, which does like self-help legal books. We used to advertise with them. Didn't really work too good. One that worked for a long time. That works. Oh, it wasn't that expensive and it worked pretty good. There's one called Yodel. I don't know if you ever remember Yodel. It was like legal online marketing.
Right.
It got bought out by some big company. I can't remember the name of the company that bought out Yodel. But once Yodel got bought out by another company, it totally changed and it wasn't working anymore. We canceled it. But yeah, so I mean, I've tried these different things, but I've never gone that heavy on them where I mean, I've spent up to $25, $30, $40, $50,000 a month even sometimes doing this stuff. Not all the time, but I've had months where I've put big money into it. For me, 50 grand is a lot.
Yeah.
For some of these firms, that's like one afternoon on TV commercials that they run all day, every day. So for me, I've spent significant amounts of money based on my own comfort level on that kind of stuff. And some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. But I don't think I've ever really lost money on any of these campaigns.
Yeah, that's good. I noticed you have a pretty slick settlement calculator on your website where a visitor can enter some basic information about their situation, get an estimate on how much their case is worth. Is that a popular tool on the site? Does that deliver quality leads?
Yeah. No, as a matter of fact, I got a few lawyers, friends of mine who have seen that and texted me, man, that's good. That's genius stuff. And I'm like, I wish I could take credit for it, but one company that I worked with, one of the guys is like, how do you tell, how do you know how much a case is worth? And I told him, well, it's really hard, but these are some factors. And then the guy's like one of these computer guys, and he came up with kind of like an algorithm, and believe it or not, the settlement calculator is actually not really that accurate, but pretty accurate. That's pretty amazing. That's like because that company is the one I called Whippy.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's an artificial intelligence company.
Wow.
So they built that site, that the settlement value calculator through some artificial intelligence. These guys are smart.
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, it's what everyone wants to know, right? Do I have a
Yeah.
case? How much is my case worth,
Yeah,
right?
and the artificial intelligence on that thing actually, it's pretty smart.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, so that actually generates a lot of leads.
Cool. Are you promoting it specifically in any way?
Yeah,
Or is it-
we do pop-up ads, pay-per-click ads for that.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, that's unique. So before we wrap up, Mauro, I always like to ask if a lawyer watching has time to adopt one, maybe two of your successful, tips and the advice that you've shared today. What would you recommend?
I would say one, don't lose sight of personal connections with people, That's the one thing. Like, I met a really huge advertising attorney that advertises like nationwide. I met the guy randomly in Las Vegas. I didn't even know who he was. I met him in Vegas during one of these conventions. He told me who he was, and we talked. He had a couple of drinks. I ended up playing blackjack with him, and just became friends with the guy before I never even talked to the guy about business. We just became friends, and I hung out with him that whole weekend in Vegas. And then when we came back, he had like his assistant call me and said, "Hey, you want to come down to the office, talk about maybe we can send you some cases." And through that connection there, I mean, I've had cases settled for millions of dollars that
Wow.
that guy sent me.
Wow.
And so don't lose sight of the fact that it's still a people business. This is a people business, Being a trial attorney is a people business. You have to deal with your clients, and you have to deal with defense attorneys, and then you deal with people that can refer you business, networking. It's all a personal people business. So don't lose sight of that. Don't try to make everything automated, even though right now you can automate almost everything. You can't automate personal connection,
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would say. Don't lose sight of that, because that's a tremendous way to grow business, get business, start out. And the other thing is, I would say, pay attention to being the business side of law in your office. So spend time thinking about marketing and advertising and budgets and what you want to target, and try different things like I've tried. Don't be afraid to throw your money into some advertising thing that comes out. Maybe it's no good. Move on from it. Just try it for a couple of months. But don't be afraid to try out new things. That's what I always say. And I tell court reporters or interpreters or medical record copy services, they always tell me, because they know I know a lot of people, So they're always telling me, "Mauro, can you refer me to your friends? Can you refer me to this guy or that guy, or to this firm or that firm?" Because they know I know these people. And I was like, I can refer you, but I can tell you, I've been around a long time, and the biggest creatures of habit you'll ever find are personal lawyers. Real. To get a personal lawyer to change anything is like moving a mountain. So for some reason, PI lawyers are very creatures of habit. So that's the thing, you have to overcome that what's been working mentality, and try to broaden your horizon and try to see what else might be working. That's what I've had to do, because I was one of those guys that's very old school. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I've been really, like I said, the law's been good to me, and I've been 500 times more successful than I ever imagined. I went to an unaccredited night law school, like in an office building. Okay, so from where I came from, an unaccredited school, young guy, didn't know shit. I've been wildly successful based on what I expected when I got out of law school.
Very cool.
But but still, as successful as I was never afraid to change or evolve or try new stuff. That's what you have to do. Just gamble.
Yeah.
Forget.
Yeah, I love your story. I love your advice. So much value. Mauro, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for asking me to be on, and anytime, just give me a call. I'm happy to come back on. No problem.
Awesome, Mauro. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone, be sure to join us for the next episode of the Grow with Kara show happening very soon. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye. Take care.